gosh, it's good to be back. I am literally smiling right now. Oh, I am so sorry that it has been such a long time. I have actually been battling some health asthma issues. I don't want to say health issues. That makes it sound so much more like I need to be hospitalized than asthma. Although, when you can't breathe, that's a pretty major issue. And if you're coughing all the time, also a major issue if you're asking people to listen to your voice. It has been an interesting few months since I checked in, and I really just felt strongly that I needed to come and check in with you guys and see how you guys are doing. Ask you to send me some messages. Go check me out on Instagram, DM me on Instagram, Facebook, A Glimpse into the Moment, or through whatsapp.org on Facebook or Instagram, or at my personal email, nita.noahspumpkins@gmail.com. Because I haven't been here for a little while, there's so much that has happened, and I'll go into a little bit of it today, but I'm going to keep today's visit a little bit on the shorter side because my voice is a little on the repairing side. I have some really great upcoming plans for the podcast, so I'm just going to ask you guys, if you enjoy listening, hang in there. As soon as my health allows, I will jump into regular production of podcasts. It just doesn't allow for that yet. So until I can be consistent in that because of my health, I'm just gonna continue this to be what it was intended when I started. A journal to help me heal and hopefully help other people heal at the same time. I know that it has helped me. I also know that it has helped other people. And right now, being small is okay. It is okay. Small and inconsistent has to be where I'm at. It has to stay in a journaling episode type release. And I think that let's explore that for a moment. It is so important for us to recognize where we're at. If we jump the line and we go from A to B to D to F to G to Z, we're really not going to have a very healthy outcome. Be that on our personal selves, on healing, or on something that we're trying to bring forward for a business or for larger enjoyment platform. It's really just not how we do our best work. It's not how I am going to be doing any of my work anymore. One of the things that was really interesting that happened to me, after Christmas, so I hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas and holiday season and Valentine's Day. Happy New Year. But when we got past Christmas and into that New Year's weekend, it hit me like a ton of bricks. The PTSD that had been swirling and kept at bay, and it dropped all over me. Instead of that ball dropping for the new year, I had PTSD just settle over me. I didn't go into a hyper, fight or flight attack. However, I was a nervous basket case. And in addition to that, my asthma was out of control. I had a couple other medical conditions, medical checkups that needed to happen. And all of that it truly has been stemming from that PTSD, from not dealing with emotions that were left in chaos, left undealt with through the fall, the summer and the fall, that were hurting. And I had to pause everything right around the new year and literally start at square one with a doctor and kind of go from there, the doctor and the therapist. And it was mission critical because I was at a stalling point. I could not do anything else. I could not function I could not think 10 steps ahead. And even the first time that I saw my doctor for asthma treatment, he knew that I was not myself. And I rarely go to the doctor, but I have a great relationship with him because he's been my family doctor forever. So he knows me. And since then, because we're still trying to figure out this asthma thing and find a medication that I'm not allergic to, blah, 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 he and I have had a good laugh over me in January versus me, the last 2 visits in February. So I've just changed so massively from Christmas to today. I'm not even close to the same person. I want to talk about an episode of PTSD that occurred that is the single strangest thing that has happened with my PTSD. The PTSD. I don't want to own it. Trying to, disassociate from it. So I feel like I'm going to take a break here in a moment, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about depersonalization. And we're going to talk about what that is, what it feels like when it hits you, how you can recover out of it, and how important it is to recognize that when people hit that level of emotional distress, they are not in contact with themselves. Sounds a little strange. I understand. If you suffer from PTSD or have ever suffered from PTSD or PTSD symptoms, even if you have not been diagnosed, you will understand. And I really want to talk about that because I want to talk about how I pulled myself out of it, what my therapist had to say about it, and how I have journaled like a crazy woman to be sure I don't hit that again. I certainly do not want to earn the title of depersonalization as a mental illness attached to me, or a mental disorder attached to me, not because of the stigma surrounding it, simply because it is incredibly debilitating, it is incredibly terrifying, and you would be very, very hard-pressed to lead a normal functioning life if that were swirling about you. And I personally, I need to work so passionately on healing so those types of symptoms do not plague me on a continual basis. Thank you for joining me. Just hold on and come right back on the other side of the break. And I just really appreciate you guys so much. I've missed you guys. Hold on. I'll be back in a moment. Enjoy the break. Welcome back. So depersonalization. Let's talk about it. Let's unpack it. So if you have emotional traumas, emotions that you are not dealing with, even if you aren't certain what they are, so I want to be really, really clear here. It doesn't mean that you know even what the emotions are. You might be doing some work trying to figure that out, and you ignore a step in the work. Okay, remember I said we're not going to skip from A to Z or G to Z. We are going to stay A, B, C, D, E, F, G. When you skip something in your work process, you run the risk for those emotions taking over, those emotions that are not being validated, that are not being heard. And for me, my attack of depersonalization occurred when I ignored everything in my body that said, journal, write, journal this out, write this out, acknowledge this, right? That's what emotions do. That's what trauma does. It wants to be acknowledged, heard, and then you can have a conversation with it about parking it. But until you do that, you run the risk of getting a system overload. And for me, I decided, because I was trying so hard as I started to feel a little better with the asthma, I was just trying so hard to exercise. And so I went for a walk. And I went for a walk in the city, the little city where I live. I live in the country, so walking on the sidewalks and with the houses all close together, and traffic is not my normal. And so I parked my car and I go for my walk, and I get just a little ways into my walk and I start feeling the tears come. By the time I get 5-8 minutes into my walk, it's a hard cry. I am just crying. And I know this, and I'm very, very stubborn. I'm very resilient, and so I'm going to push on. And I refuse to go back to my car and sit in my car and cry. Never mind that I had my journal in my car. I could have gone back to my car and journaled. That's not what I chose to do. I chose to push on because I am tough, I am resilient, and I got this. Yeah. Well, the further that I got into the walk, maybe 10 minutes, 12 minutes into the walk, I am practically hiccup crying. My vision's a little blurry. I'm having a hard time stepping. I am cognizant enough to know that I don't want to run into people, especially run the risk of running into anybody that I know who might be out walking, because there's a few people out walking. And so I am crossing the street in multiple spaces so that I don't actually have to walk close to anybody or run into anybody or visit with anybody. So I'm cognizant enough to keep distance from people. But I'm having a difficult time maintaining my vision, the tunnel vision. My thoughts are going crazy. They're dialing into just emotional hurt around never being chosen. And we'll talk about that in another episode, but right now we're just going to park it at that. I do know I have a role in that. I have the biggest role in that, in choosing myself, but we're not going to talk about that today. My emotional self is so hurt and so rejected and so damaged. And it spins on that. And those thoughts, even though I keep pushing them away, they keep dropping back down. And so when they become overwhelming, I stop and I do some deep breathing, technique that my therapist has me do. And so I'm focusing on that. And I would feel the world come back into focus, kind of like that. If you have like a rubber band, let's use a rubber band, you stretch it out with your fingers and then boom, it comes back, it pops back together. And that's what the world was doing. And I'm just only a third of the way through my walk. And again, I'm not going to go back. And the world is doing this like blurry, boom. I'd pull it back together. And then I would go a little bit further. And then I would have to stop, breathe, focus on these thoughts, like getting out of my head. The tears are still streaming. I am still in the middle of the city. Well, residential area, homes, but still, this is the city, this is not the country. And then I decide to go a little bit further. Well, I have to, right? I'm away from my car. So I keep walking, like I just keep going. I get down to the bottom of this little hill, and it hits me completely different. I don't know what shifted in me. I do know it's the thought pattern that shifted, it deepened, the hurt, the rejection, that all deepened. Whether or not it should have, doesn't really matter. My role in it doesn't really matter. It did. It took over. Those hurts from a lifetime, not from one experience, from a lifetime spurred by a more localized experience. Those took over and they consumed me. And the rest of my walk, well, the next 15 minutes of my walk was literally like I started it felt like I was walking 5 or 6 inches above the ground. Every step had to be like if you were walking on marshmallows and trying to stand upright. I couldn't walk in a straight line. I was having a difficult time standing straight up. I wanted to lean. I was leaning to the side. Tears are still streaming. I'm trying so hard to walk in a straight line. I know that I've got to look drunk. But I'm not really thinking that. I'm literally just thinking, oh my God, can I make it to the next driveway, driveway to driveway. And then I would focus on the stop sign up ahead. Can I get to that stop sign? And then I need to turn left. Can I get to the stop sign and turn left? And then the thoughts, the hurt, the rejection, the emotional hurt would just swirl and drop and hit. And suddenly the houses are growing and changing shape. And I know it sounds crazy. And no, I wasn't on drugs. I don't do drugs ever. Never have. Never been drunk. The houses are literally closing in on me. And the only way that this didn't totally, make me end up in a psych ward or committing suicide was that I had enough tools in my bucket from my therapist to continually keep pulling myself back to reality. So I knew I was in trouble, emotional trouble. I knew something was going seriously haywire with my emotional self. Every time I would stop, not only would I do the deep breathing, but by this point, I was grounding myself to anything that I could touch. Even if that just meant running my fingernails along my hand, my arm, my legs, my exercise clothing, or if it meant if I was by a tree, running my hand on the tree really firmly. When I would stop and breathe, I would, you know how if you sit down and you sit real hard, but I would stand just so hard into my feet and just really feel mentally pushing myself into the ground, and I would only stay there for seconds because I needed to get back to the car. I needed to get back. And so I would go a little bit further, and I'm realizing as I'm walking on these air, I'm not, but it feels like I'm walking on this invisible layer. I'm not walking, standing up straight, and I can't walk in a straight line. And I as I pass things, mailboxes or trees, I put my hand out, not only to ground myself, but to make sure that I don't run into them, literally, physically, that I don't run into them. As the trees are, if you've ever had a PTSD attack, it's very common for things to close in on you and make you feel claustrophobic. They're surrounding you. They're getting in on you. As those things started to close in on me, I literally had to fight the urge to go to the center of the road and walk on the yellow line back to my car. And I'm pausing so that you can imagine, what would that have looked like? I would have looked crazy. I am not a crazy person. I don't do crazy things. I am stable, responsible, reliable, a leader, committed, dedicated. But I was in such a state of distress from PTSD escalating to depersonalization that I literally felt like I needed to walk on the yellow line just to be safe. Every time I stopped, I wanted to sit down in somebody's yard and breathe and just sit heavy and cry and get through it. But I knew that would be crazy too. Oh my gosh. So for about 18, 20 minutes, I fought an internal battle while walking through communities that I've walked through before, and nobody even knew. There was a moment before I rounded that last corner and I wanted to walk in the center line that it hit me. It hit me that this is that spot. This is that spot that people get where they decide to take their life. Right here. This is it. This is where they go. And there's no turning back. But for me, there's a turning back because I had so many tools and I just kept pulling tools out to pull myself back down to reality. But if I didn't have those tools, it gave me an understanding. It gave me an incredible understanding of how people get to a suicidal no turnaround point. They're not even there anymore. They are so hurt. And that's where I was. After I decided that I was not going to walk in the middle of the road, at some point in there, I found a little bit of peace. And I really truly believe that it was that acknowledgement of self, of recognizing that this is that dark spot that people go to when they feel they have no other choice. And when I hit that spot, it, for me, with all the tools that I had from my therapist, was a turning point to come back to myself. And I had about another 8 to 10 minute walk, and I rounded the corner and I could see my car, and just then my phone rang. And the person who called, I chatted with, had absolutely no idea. And I only answered the phone because I had literally just walked past his office, and I thought for sure he saw me walk past his office, and I thought he was calling to tease me, and I didn't want to ignore the phone call. But he had no idea I had just walked past his office. He had absolutely no idea that I had just had a severe PTSD, out-of-body depersonalization experience, and was for a very brief moment understanding of how people walk right out of life. I'll catch you guys on the other side of the break. Thanks for sticking around. Kind of scary, right? And it happened in the blink of an eye. I got back to the car, finished up my phone conversation, picked up my sweet little cousin. She was at a doctor's appointment. And I came home. And I couldn't quite understand everything that had happened. But I knew for me that it was terrifying and life-altering. I was so hurt and so numb that my mind pulled me out of self to protect myself. Oh, what a powerful tool our mind is. Am I ashamed of that? No, I am not. Am I embarrassed by it? No, I am not. Am I glad it happens? Well, that's a mixed one. I understand at a deeper level than I ever have before so many things. One being, don't ignore what your entire body is screaming at you to do. My body was screaming at me to sit in that car and journal. And I ignored it. I should have listened to my body. I should have released those emotions through writing. Massive lesson learned. It's okay that it happened. I hope that I am diligent enough to listen to myself and my emotional needs from this point forward so that nothing like that happens again. I can't imagine that happening to a person without a year of therapy, massive therapy. I mean, we're talking, I probably have had 2 years of therapy for how many hours I go a week. Kids, I take a double session at least every week. You know, it's a lot of time invested in healing and a lot of tools. And it all of that barely got me back to my car. We have to do better talking about things like this. We have to do better with just being honest with ourselves. I'm not saying you have to go start a podcast and start talking about, your mental battles. But you do need to be honest with yourself. Where are you at each moment of the day? And you can't assess that once a day. That's useless. I was fine 72 minutes before I went on that walk. And then suddenly I wasn't. And then suddenly I was in this void. I didn't even exist. And then suddenly I was back. If we want to have better outcomes, healthier people, less incidences of tragedy and loss due to suicide, we have to do better at listening to ourselves, understanding ourselves, valuing ourselves, encouraging each other to value each other. We have to remove the fear and the shame and the judgment up on ourselves. On ourselves. I hope's a whole nother different conversation to have. I'm hoping for you. I am hoping that you are having an amazing journey right now. That no matter where you are in your journey, that you are finding ways to support yourself. That you are finding people who value you, people who hear you, see you, honor you, and that you listen to you to know whether or not those people are meeting that very basic need for you. And that if they're not, that you're letting them go. Because there are people out there who will honor you. I'll be honest, like right now, I am probably at a low point in people. And that's just because I have actually started showing up for Nita. And what does that mean? Well, it means that if people's actions and their words do not match, I can't have them in my life. And I certainly can't have them on my innermost circle. Because I've always given everybody access to me. And that can no longer be. And I hope for you that you start to realize that whatever is important and valuable to you, whoever gets through that door and gets access to special, magical, insanely beautiful, gorgeous, handsome, strong you, actually has the right to be there. That their actions match their words, and that you feel honored and valuable when you let them through that door. That you are heard and you are seen. And not just heard, that you are listened to. That's a more honoring thing than just hearing. Thank you guys for joining me. I really have loved being back. I will try and get a couple more episodes out before the end of the month. Thank you for your patience and giving me grace to be inconsistent as I heal and get on the other side of managing this asthma. And I'm super excited. The divorce trial is coming up at the end of March. I'm more prepared than ever before. And my car's broke down, but that's okay. I've actually got a plan for it. I'm not even worried about it. The preparations for my future endeavors are just bubbling and happening on a continual daily basis, and that is empowering and new. And I am at a great space with the right support systems around me, people who love me, people who value me, people who cherish me. And there's not a lot of them, like 2. And my kids. But sometimes it's all you need, right? 1 or 2 good people who see you, hear you, and show up for you can make all the difference. And it certainly can minimize your PTSD attacks. It can minimize anything as awful as depersonalization. And it can certainly make you feel confident in your value. Put the right people around you. Enjoy your journey. Go ABC, not A to Z. And let me know how you're doing. I really would love to have you give us a follow, whatsup.org. And we're on Facebook and Instagram. Come on over to A Glimpse into the Moment. Reach out through there. Let's have a conversation about healing. My DM is always open. If you just need somebody to talk to, let me know. And love my sponsor, Team Sharudo. Great organization doing terrific coaching and push around developing young athletes with healthy mindsets. So go check them out. Team Sharudo. Great, great organization. Thank you guys for the sponsorship. And thank you guys. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I will see you guys next time. Bye.